Hey everybody, welcome to DadsDen of Pop Culture and a movie review today. The Colossus of New York. This is a B movie, Sci-Fi. So when you're going to watch a B movie, you kind of know, what you're heading in for. In terms of, maybe the script isn't going to be all it's meant to be. Maybe some of the acting is going to be a little off. You're not heading into a big budget, Class A picture, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get something good, or at least something with flashes of brilliance. And I think that's what you get with the Colossus of New York. It's like about 50% and about 50% wow. And it really impressed me when I finally just recently got the chance to watch it. And this is one of those movies, because of the creature in it, images that'll float around, especially in old things like Filmfax magazine, something I was aware of and always wanted to watch. Finally got my chance, and I was like, I got to do a review on this one. So let's jump into the review here. And there are going to be spoilers, because we're going to kind of run through the plot and then, a little commentary along the way I like to do things here. So we begin with a scroll. In the background, you can see the United Nations building, and we're going to have these words, they scroll up the screen. So that it's a little bit difficult to just show the credits like I normally do. So we got the Colossus of New York, a William Alland production. This is a guy who also worked on This Island Earth. It Came from Outer Space. Tarantula, with exclamation point. The Deadly Mantis, which was just on Svengoolie like a week or so ago when I'm recording this. And the three Creature of the Black Lagoon films, my favorite trilogy from Universal. Their old Munster movies, really impressive. So right off, we also get this really amazing piano score done by Van Cleeve. Now here we got a guy, Easter Parade, Funny Face, but also Robinson Crusoe on Mars, did White Christmas. So we got some people who were very talented working on this movie, and who also worked on, other kinds of films. Not just sci-fi, not just horror. So they're bringing in skill sets from outside. And it really shows in this movie. And again, the piano score, kind of unnerving, kind of minimalist. It was, at first, I was kind of like, it almost felt like, it's, one of those kind of cheap scores you get on a B movie. But as I listened to it, I'm like, wow, no, it's actually really good. There's a lot more to it than you might immediately think. Film stars John Bergerac as Dr. Henry Spencer. This dude did a lot of TV work, was also in Gamera, The Invincible. Gotta love that. Mala Powers plays Anne Spencer. She is in maybe my favorite movie, Cyrano de Bergerac, playing Roxanne, who Cyrano is in love with. Also did a lot of TV. B movies, and somewhat because she almost died from a blood disease that she contracted while she was entertaining troops in the Korean War. So that kind of threw her career off a little bit, but she's really good in this. Otto Kruger, Saboteur, Magnificent Obsession, also Dracula's Daughter, Another Thin Man, Duel in the Sun, did a wide variety of films, plays Dr. William Spencer in this movie. And we'll get more into who these characters are as we go. Robert Hutton plays Dr. John Carrington. He's best known for Destination Tokyo. And I believe it was him. He sort of resembled, without the mustache that he's going to have in this, he sort of resembled Jimmy Stewart. And he got a lot of movies during the 40s when Jimmy Stewart was off to war. So it's sort of like, this character would be good for a Jimmy Stewart type. Well, that was Robert Hutton. Dr. Jeremy Spencer is our main main character in this movie, really, played by the great Ross Martin, who is probably best known for Wild Wild West, played Artemis Gordon, but also Mr. Lucky, TV series I've been watching lately. Lots of other TV shows, lots of other movies. Charles Herbert plays Billy Spencer. Did a lot of work as a child actor, including roles in The Long Trailer with Lucy and Desi. Please Don't Eat the Daisies, which I happened just to have watched about a month ago. Was in The Fly. 13 Ghosts, one of my favorite little, B horror pictures. And, big surprise here, was kind of ruined by Hollywood. Sadly, that's happens a lot with child actors. Screenplay is by Thelma Schnee. Now, later, her last name was later Moss. She was an actress and later psychologist and parapsychologist who worked on the concept of auras. Now, she also wrote the screenplay to Alec Guinness's Father Brown, and she wrote a book, Myself and I, about her experience with LSD treatment. So a very interesting woman, and she wrote an interesting screenplay, a flawed screenplay, but with some really nice dashes of brilliance in there that I can kind of think, foreshadow some of the other things she was going to do in her life. It's based on a story by Willis Goldbeck. He wrote most of the Dr. Kildare films for MGM and directed several, including several other movies, including the infamous Freaks, did The Penguin Pool Murder, which starred Zazu Pitts, who I just did a video about, and Love Laughs at Andy Hardy. Also, ready for this one, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. So again, wide variety of things going in, and that's good. That's a good thing. I mean, it's not bad when somebody is like, they do sci-fi and that's all they do. But when people work on lots of different things, they can bring different influences in and make something a little bit richer. Our director of photography, John F. Warren, who was nominated for an Academy Award for Country Girl in 1954, a movie I had not heard of, stars Bing Crosby, and apparently it's kind of a little rough drama. So I might check that out one of these days. Art direction, Hal Pereira and John Goodman, and really good art direction in this. I liked it. I liked it a lot. They're working, they're working in an area that didn't necessarily have a big aesthetic vocabulary, if you will, and created some things and maybe some shots. You never know exactly who's behind what, but that I think you would even see in Robocop. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Movie is directed by Eugene Lourie, Russian-born, French director, art director, production designer, and set designer. Guy did a bunch. Nominated for an Academy Award in 1969 for Best Visuals for Krakatoa, East of Java. Also worked on Gorgo, Bikini Paradise, and the Kung Fu TV series. Okay. So we got a really eccentric bunch of people making this film, and it shows. Movie begins, kind of a weird opening, with Dr. Jeremy, or doctors, I should say, Jeremy and Henry Spencer, and Billy Spencer, the son, Jeremy's son, watching an industrial film. And it's highlighting some new invention of Henry's. And through conversation, we kind of get that, well, Jeremy had something to do with it, and there might be some jealousy towards Jeremy by his brother. The conversation is soon joined by Jeremy's wife, Anne, played by Mala Powers. So we get the introduction of the family and its dynamics, and we learn that Jeremy is a genius with many inventions and innovations under his belt. Now, the jealousy angle is not explored as fully in this film as I would have liked, though it does play a part in the movie. It's one of the reasons that when I first watched it, I wanted the movie to be longer. It's a pretty short film, about an hour and 8 minutes. And I thought, man, if you could add another 10 minutes to this film, There's some really interesting stuff you could have looked into. Could have knocked it up a notch. And then I realized, well, actually, there's a fair amount of padding in this movie. So it maybe actually could have been a better film at an hour and 8 minutes. You know, if you just took some of the long shots of the creature walking, you know, you could have cut that down a little bit and maybe put a little bit more into the characters. I think in general, the actors were up for it. You know, maybe the screenplay wasn't quite up for it yet. Hints at things maybe could have been more fully explored. So we next pick things up after this little conference with these folks at Idlewild Airfield. This is pre-JFK assassination, so it's not yet John F. Kennedy, Airport. So we're in New York, where Jeremy and family are going to be arriving on an airplane, met by Father William, and played by Otto Kruger, and Dr. Robert Carrington. So Jeremy can give this speech at the United Nations. He's come up with this plan that could help, if not end world hunger, could severely curtail it. This is the time period we're in. Scientific wonders were going to solve all the world's problems. So we're going to see a little bit more of the psychological issues cropping up here, as it's pretty apparent that Dad does like Jeremy best. And we also get a little bit of philosophy from Dad. Some people use their genius for selfish ends, bad guys like Machiavelli. Some for their family and community. But Jeremy is the best kind of genius, as he serves the world unselfishly. And it's kind of true, actually. He does seem to be a really good guy. But you can imagine his brother has had to hear that for a lot of years. So when they step, so they do land. Everybody meets, greets. They step out of the airport, and the wind carries away Billy's toy airplane. So Jeremy runs off to retrieve it. The doting father, he loves his son. And sadly, in the process, he is struck by a truck and killed. So this is not really a great family trip. But William, Grandpa, is a brain surgeon. So we got a brain surgeon. One son is a genius. The other son works in electronics. Very, very smart. So this is a smart family. He orders an ambulance. He's not going to accept that his son is dead. And that's a big part of this film. Stately Wayne Manor. No, not Stately Wayne Manor. This would be Stately Spencer Manor. The ambulance rushes the body to William's private estate. And he has like a surgery center there and a laboratory. You always get that in old movies, right? These guys always have their own private little lab and surgery center. Carrington and Anne, though, do not really understand why, since Jeremy is already dead. I mean, declared dead at the scene. This is a sci-fi movie, so of course, I think the rest of us have a good idea of what is probably going on. When Carrington offers his help to William, William says, "I need no one." Closes the doors. This is a nice shot. We do get a few nice shots in the film. It's not spectacular in terms of cinematography, but not bad. And there's definitely some elements of vibes of the classic Universal horror films in this movie, and close ties to the Frankenstein, story in particular. So hours later, William emerges and says sadly, "I did all I could." Okay, so that's the end of Jeremy, and now the movie's over. It's a really no. So we next see Jeremy at the funeral, bandages on the head, maybe a little bit too on the nose, maybe a little bit too much of a clue of what is going on, but he is buried. And while Carrington is eulogizing him, he counsels people to trust in the wisdom of the Creator in terms of Jeremy's seemingly meaningless death. And William stands up and shouts, "No!" And he stomps out of the room. So he is not dealing with this very well. And later, he's arguing with Carrington about finding meaning from such an accident. And this is a really, really good scene. This is, to me, one of the wow moments in the film. William says that a brain like his son's should be preserved. It should live on forever because of its genius. And Carrington counters that such a disembodied intelligence, soulless, would lead to tragedy. it would become monstrous. And William scoffs at this antiquated idea of a soul. You're a scientist. Can you measure a soul? Can you measure it? While this goes on to this day in arguments between religious people and atheists especially. I won't say all scientists, because some scientists are religious people, but can you measure it? Well, does that mean it's not, not a real thing? For some people it does. For some people it does not. And Carrington here says, and this is a quote, "I believe that any brain unable to feel hunger and cold, pleasure and pain, love and hate, any brain divorced from human experience must become dehumanized to the point of monstrousness." And the answer to him is, you're an idiot, which sounds like a lot of internet debates that we get nowadays. So this is a debate that's going, strong to this day, and maybe more timely now than even back then, with attempts to create essentially disembodied, soulless superintelligences in the form of artificial intelligence. And this argument got me thinking really about some of the musings that Jonathan Pageau has on this issue. You can go find his channel and maybe find a few of these things. It's interesting stuff, for sure. And a really good scene in the movie. It sort of elevates it a bit. Thoughtful, intelligent, performed well by the actors. So as William stomps off, Carrington stops him, reminds him that this is all just theoretical. We don't need to argue about this. So Carrington and Henry are both worried about William. He's not dealing well with his son's death. And Carrington tells Henry that William is going to need him. And Henry responds, well, that's something new. In the past, he always needed Jeremy, preferred Jeremy. Oh, okay. So there's the jealousy angle, stated right out. This is a dysfunctional family. We'll put it that way. And fortunately now, with Jeremy dead, his wife and son are going to move in, so they're all going to be in the same house. And we see in this scene that Henry has an interest in Anne. So his, maybe you could say former sister-in-law, technically, death do us part. And Carrington might be interested in her as well, although Carrington's interest might be a little bit more wholesome, a little bit healthier. We could put it that way. Well, one night, William gets Henry aside, and here we get to the meat of the story. He has preserved Jeremy's brain, and he ultimately wants to install it in this robot body that Henry had been working on for use in industry. Okay, so we're in a very sort of Frankenstein world here, or situation here, and a very sci-fi B-movie one as well. But, again, that doesn't make it, doesn't make it necessarily goofy. We just had a scene really talking about philosophy that was very interesting. So Henry thinks this is a bad idea for much the same reason as Carrington, but William will not be dissuaded. This is sort of the kind of Luciferian concept of intelligence unbound by humility or wisdom. If I can do it, I should do it. And of course he has high reasons for this, all the things he could do for the world. Okay. And you also wonder a little bit, but maybe Henry also is a little glad that his brother is gone. Okay. But at any rate, Henry is the electronics genius, and William needs him to make this happen. And Henry is obviously no dummy, but the way William speaks to him, almost like he's speaking to a child, you really can see where that resentment comes from. All right. So while they're kind of getting a Frankenstein on in there, Carrington is spending time with Anne. Carrington's going somewhere. This is supposed to be kind of a goodbye party, and the other two have been gone the entire time. Honestly, probably that's not a bad thing. And you do see he's a little more wholesome. He's a little more sensitive. He's a little more human than Henry or William were. And Jeremy seemed like he was a little more human than the other two as well, honestly. He's not gripped with mania and resentment. And so now we get our first glimpse of the Colossus. the robot, played by Eric Wolf. And I cannot tell you how effective this scene is. This is another one of the wow moments in the movie. They have installed the brain, and now they're going to turn him on. And his eyes slowly light up. Okay. And William's talking to him, Jeremy, wake up, et cetera. You can speak. And there's this struggle for Jeremy's voice to come through the speaker. And it sounds like it's coming through a speaker, and it modulates and it crackles and really only gradually becomes understandable. It's really pretty creepy. And then we see how Jeremy sees through like a video camera. And this is where it really reminded me of that scene in Robocop where they're turning him on and, and then you can see from his eyes what he's seeing. And gradually the picture gets clearer. If you do nothing else, go watch this scene in the movie. It's about 25 minutes into it. It's really fantastic and really kind of horrifying. And then Jeremy, you can walk. And so he starts to walk a little bit. And as Anne, who's hearing kind of these noises, starts coming down the stairs to investigate what's going on in the laboratory, we hear this electronic scream because he has looked at himself in the mirror. He is aware of what he is now. It is a really creepy scream and really effective. Just so damn good. Whoever designed that, amazing job. Whoever the particular brain behind it was, really amazing job. And then he sort of, collapses. And you notice here, the design of the creature, a little bit reminiscent of what we'll get, maybe not quite 10 years later with Rook from the Star Trek episode, What Are Little Girls Made Of? And obviously very similar themes in the two things as well. One wonders if that Colossus of New York was on somebody's mind when they were making up this character. So we get a little data dump here. To turn on the body/brain, you have to shift a lever on it to the left. And Henry put it where Jeremy in the robot body cannot reach it. And his father, why? Why did you do that? So he cannot destroy himself. Well, why should he? Why shouldn't he? Great line. So the scientists lie to Anne about what happened. Oh, we were doing an experiment. It failed. My father kind of freaked out. He didn't handle it well. They're trying to keep her in the dark. And she says the screams, the voice that she heard reminded her of Jeremy's voice. You get a ping of jealousy from Henry at the mention of his brother's name. So Henry returns to the lab and cannot believe that his father is planning to continue with this. This isn't an abstract intelligence, he says. It's a brain. It remembers. It feels like this is a person. And William gives Jeremy here, who's kind of recovered a bit, the option of death. If you want to be deactivated, I'll deactivate you. And Jeremy chooses death. And of course, William argues with him. You have a responsibility to the world to continue to create, to invent. You can help millions. And Jeremy goes for it. But under the condition that people will continue to think he is dead and that Anne and Billy know nothing about this. He doesn't want to be seen as this creature. So Jeremy goes back to work in the laboratory with William, with Henry, and seems to be in better control of the speaking apparatus. It's more understandable. Although when he becomes frustrated or suffers any negative emotions, he loses control a bit. And we start to see that disembodied brain is maybe becoming something more than human as well. He sees a vision of ships colliding at sea. And that night on television, his father discovers that it actually happened, down to the name of the ship. So, it's already showing signs that this putting your son's brain in a robot body might not be the best idea. And we laugh about this, but we are in this day and age watching scientists do things that have been shown in movie after movie to maybe be a horrible, horrible mistake, and they're forging right on ahead anyways. So it is kind of an aspect of the scientist. So while Jeremy is doing his work, Henry is working on Anne and Billy, inviting him on a trip to Hawaii. So he's trying to kind of insinuate himself with his ex-sister-in-law. And Jeremy finds it amusing that he cannot feel or smell, but he has extrasensory perception. And there's a seemingly throwaway line here that maybe means more. When asked if he sees other things, he just replies, yes, in an ominous tone. And it is now that Henry decides to goad his brother with the fact, your grave is very nearby. He's screwing with him a little bit. He's kind of enjoying this. And Jeremy threatens him, do not goad me, and if you continue to do so, I can kill you. Yeah, don't poke the bear. Don't poke the giant robot. So the world's leading experts are going to convene at the United Nations to hear the work posthumously of Jeremy Spencer. This is on growing grains in the polar regions, etc., so we can get more food for everybody. And Dr. Carrington is going to present the work on Jeremy's behalf. But more importantly, today is also September the 18th. And William has forgotten that is the first anniversary of Jeremy's death. And Jeremy decides he will visit the grave. Now remember, earlier Jeremy is, nobody must know that, I exist in this form. Now he's talking about going outside the lab and visiting his own grave. William forbids him. You may be seen. But we now also learn that Jeremy is capable of hypnotizing and controlling people. So his mind, disembodied, is gaining extra abilities, psychic abilities, essentially. So the mad scientist, William, has lost control of his creation. So he goes off to visit this grave. We get some fast motion here, which kind of reminded me of Herman Munster. The movie is good, but not perfect. And I don't think they really needed to do the fast motion to really get him stepping, just, start rolling when he's closer to the grave. But at the gravesite, he hears Anne's voice. And he kind of goes and hides a little bit, but he ends up interacting with Billy, his son. Now he's still hiding his identity. So Billy he just calls him a giant. Doesn't know who he is. So the Colossus is losing his humanity, but it's not gone entirely. We still have that connection with his son. And Anne kind of freaks when she realizes she doesn't know where Billy is. And she catches a glimpse of the Colossus as she runs into the woods after Billy. And Henry sees as well. And he's like, oh, what is he doing out here? And did he see me with his wife and son? Now, the next part makes me wonder if Jeremy is losing his mind or if there was a change in the script that was not caught, because he confronts his father saying that he lied to him, told him his family was dead, purposely kept them away from him, which is not what happened earlier in the movie. He was aware that his wife was alive. He didn't want her to see him. So I think there was something in there that was cut, right? And we're seeing the results. And William doesn't deny any of this. So I think it is just, an error, basically. So in any event, Jeremy does a little bit of rampaging in the lab because he cannot feel. And we next see him outside the home at night, staring at Anne's window. And we see Anne waking up as though she knows she's being watched. And she puts on a robe and walks outside. Now, she has the classic universal white sort of nightgown thing on that we get a lot of in movies with women, being taken by monsters. But she puts a robe on, so we kind of lose that aspect of universal horror. Well, she's met outside by Henry, who tries some more clumsy wooing while she frets about what that thing in the woods was, where it came from, what it wants. And Henry kisses her here while Jeremy looks on. He approaches and faints, and Henry just runs away. So not looking good for Henry now in the boyfriend department. So Jeremy picks Anne up and carries her back to her bed. And a little more fast motion in this part, which does kind of hurt the scene just a little bit, but really kind of tender the way he puts her back in the bed. So again, he's not completely lost his humanity, at least not with people that he's very close to and who didn't, conduct a inhuman experiment on him. So Anne is sobbing the next morning when Carrington arrives. Now, he doesn't quite believe her, the thing she says she saw. And William is doing his best to make Carrington think that Anne is hallucinating the whole thing. She refuses to see William, knows he is responsible for whatever she's going on. And in fact, she's quite right about that. We next see, while William is preoccupied with his lack of control of Jeremy, he knows things are getting out of hand. We then see Henry makes a call to William from this phone booth. He's fled. He wants money so he can go further away. He knows that Jeremy knows and will kill him, and that he can see him wherever he is. And William, while he's on the phone to him, then hears from behind him, "Yes, I can." And it's Jeremy, and he describes exactly where Henry is and instructs through his hypnosis power to tell William to set up a meeting between them. Okay. Well, they do have their meeting, and Jeremy gets there actually by walking underwater through the river to get to the place. Kind of smart, because remember, he's a robot, doesn't breathe, etc. So Henry meets his fate here. Death rays from the eyes, very cool. And we know once a monster kills for the first time, the killings are going to get easier from here on in. But William has even bigger problems. Jeremy, feeling betrayed, or just because he's essentially a brain in a jar, has now turned against humanity. He says that the world's problem isn't too little food, but too many people. Boy, that sounds like things we hear from certain folks nowadays. Why create food for the maimed and the useless? Why should we preserve the slum people of the world and the humanitarian scientists who want to keep human trash alive must be destroyed first? So sadly, he's basically kind of done what we always worry an AI might do in a situation like this. And he hypnotizes his father once again into denying his existence. No one must know that he exists. So he's firmly in control of his father now. And so the police show up, hearing these reports. There's been a killing. People think they've seen this giant thing. Okay. So they show up at the estate, and Anne, kind of under pressure from her father-in-law, denies she saw the giant that she has talked about in the past. And she's kind of vacillating between believing her father-in-law, maybe it was a hallucination, believing her own eyes. He suggests, again, probably under Jeremy's orders, that she avoid seeing Billy for the next few days. Okay, that's kind of odd, and she doesn't like it. Well, this is because Jeremy is still visiting the boy every day, in fact. And this is maybe his last real link, to the life he used to have and his personality. So when Billy tries to find a present hidden in his father's robe, he gets too close to that shutoff lever, and Jeremy warns him, "Oh, don't never touch that. It might kill me." Okay, but he does have a present for him, and it is an airplane like the one that was kind of responsible for Jeremy dying. Now, Anne later finds this airplane in Billy's room, and she goes, "Oh, you used to have one." She's like, "Oh my." And she kind of puts it all together. Billy tells her he's been playing with Mr. Giant just about every day, but that now Mr. Giant wants him to call him Daddy. Okay, now don't be that way. It's not like that. But so fatherly advice here for everybody. Unless somebody is actually your father, Probably want to avoid large men who want you to call them daddy. I mean, it's up to you, but you might be heading down a dark path. So in the lab, Jeremy is hypnotizing his father into being at the United Nations building for the World Food Congress at a certain time and to bring Anne and Billy. So he wants everybody there. All right. So we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. So once they get there, we have all these scientists mulling around. The Colossus appears, again, traveled underwater through the river. He begins wreaking destruction, death rays, taking people out almost at random. But he is stopped. And he's only stopped when Billy kind of runs up there and refers to him as daddy and tells him that he hates him because he's bad. And it sort of shocks Jeremy for a moment. And he says, Billy, I cannot stop myself. You must stop me. Tells him to pull the lever to shut him off. And he does. 'Twas Billy killed the beast. So he falls. He is deactivated. It is over. Now, this to me was another somewhat flawed part of the movie because people just didn't seem to be shocked enough of what was going on after this happens. It was kind of like, okay, well, that's over with. Ice cream, God for ice cream, great. Could have been a little bit better, a little more heartfelt, maybe Anne like crying over him. And that's like where the end, they kind of do this other bit here where you get William saying to Carrington, you were right. Without a soul, there was only monstrousness. And again, we kind of laugh at some of this stuff, but honestly, he's not wrong. And this is, again, something we're going to be going through for the next few decades, at least, disembodied intelligences with potentially quite a lot of power. So it's a very somber ending to the film. Again, it is a flawed movie, no doubt, but sometimes insightful, some really great scenes scattered through it. I think that it is definitely worth watching, especially if you're a sci-fi fan. I think you'll get a lot out of it. I think even if you're not a sci-fi fan, it's kind of a fun movie. It's done well. It could have been done better, maybe more money, maybe more time. I mean, one of the problems that B movies often had was a very tight shooting schedule. So we got one take. We can't do 3 takes to maybe get it better. But I think under the conditions, the actors, especially Mala Powers, Otto Kruger, Ross Martin, I think I'll do a really, really good job with the material that they have. So thumbs up for me for the Colossus of New York. You might want to check this one out. If this is a movie that maybe a movie that you love, maybe a movie that you hate, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the film and maybe some of the ideas that I've brought up. If you enjoyed this review, maybe give it a like, maybe think of subscribing or sharing with a friend. That would be very groovy. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. And I will hopefully see you again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.